everyone, hope you're all doing very well. Thank you all so much for joining me for a new video, and this one is a very special one because it's a video I have been meaning to post for ages, but today we are finally doing. I am showing you my entire updated classics collection, maybe with a few exceptions because a few of my classics are right on the top shelf, which is a bit hard for me to reach, but I'm gonna try and show you maybe a few clips later. My idea for this is to go through all of my shelves. We are going to start on this corner and go all the way around until I show you all the beautiful classics that I own. If you notice that I missed a few books, then please let me know and I can maybe show them in a future vlog or something, but this is a video that I like to film every year and show you my updated collection. Classics are some of my favorite books to read and to collect. I find them beautiful. I love how they throw me back in time and just teach me so much about the world. A lot of them might not become my favorites, but I always appreciate reading them, and it is something that I think I will always enjoy doing. You'll notice that for a few books I have multiple editions of. That's where you'll know they are some of my favorite books, most likely. Before we start, I would love to know if you also enjoy reading classics or if you're planning to start reading them. If you have any favorites, let me know all of that, and of course let me know what you think of these editions, what is missing in my collection. If you have any recommendations, I always love hearing them. But with that said, let's start on this corner of my bookshelves, and we're gonna start with the cute little brown shelf that I built a while ago, which is usually where I keep a few of my thrifted classics that I love so much. Right on top of that shelf, I do keep a few Irish books. Celtic mythology, poems, fairy tales is one of my favorite things, and I just absolutely love collecting them. Right now, I can just feel the library smell of this particular book. I found this one a while ago at a thrifted bookstore, and it is just called In Search of Ireland by H.V. Morton. It has a very simple look, as you can see, and it does include a map of Ireland on both the front and the back of the book. I have been to Ireland 3 times now, I think, and it is one of my favorite places in the whole world. So when I found this one, of course I needed to have it. It has a few pictures as well of people and places, and I am looking forward to reading this one eventually. I believe it is a non-fiction about the history of this beautiful country, which is always something that I am interested in reading about. And then I have a few collections of fairy tales and poetry as well. I'm going to show you these two. So first I have poems of the Irish people, and then we have Irish fairy and folk tales. They're both beautiful. I love this color so much, just the combination of the green and golden or silver. It screams Ireland, of course, and I have read a few poems of both of these collections, but I definitely need to finish reading all of them. Right after that, I have a shelf full of these beautiful gems. Look at them together, they're so beautiful. Okay, let's quickly go through them. Firstly, I have this stunning collection of oldish Penguin Classics edition. These are the Penguin Popular Classics actually, and I feel like anytime I find one in a thrifted bookstore, I immediately grab it because they're not the easiest to find here in Portugal. But the ones I have are A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare, Hamlet, also by William Shakespeare, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. I have never read this book. Not sure I'm gonna love it exactly, but it's certainly one that I'm hoping to read eventually during my lifetime. Then we have one that I adore, which is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. The Golden Treasury by Frances Turner Palgrave. This is actually a romantic poetry collection. It's beautiful. It introduced me to so many new authors and other ones that I loved already, but either didn't know they had written poetry or wasn't aware of just how amazing they are. I also own Waverley by Sir Walter Scott and 2 Thomas Hardy's books. So the first one I have is Jude the Obscure, and then I also have The Woodlanders by Thomas Hardy. This is the one that I found most recently, I believe. I love this color so much. Whenever it plays with nature, they're usually my favorites. Thomas Hardy, you'll be seeing a lot of books from him in this collection. I do want to read all of them at some point. I love Thomas Hardy's writing style so much. And again, on the same bookshelf, we have a pile of a bit of random editions. The first book I have here, I think, is so precious. This is the Concise Oxford Dictionary of Opera by Harold Rosenthal and John Warwick. I saw this cover, it immediately made me laugh, and it is a book about opera after all. This is more of a dictionary, precisely. So you have names of concepts in music that are usually used in opera, names of songs. I think this is such a nice guide for me to have. If you're not aware, I am a music student. I do have a training in lyrical singing and I do love listening to opera. I'm always looking forward to learning more about it. So I think this is just such a charming little book to own in case I have any questions about the matter. Next, I have these two gorgeous oldish Barnes & Noble classics. Firstly, I have Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, and then Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen, which is also another book slash collections that you will see a lot of in this video. I love how floppy these books are. That's just amazing. My favorite type of book is floppy paperbacks. I feel like I always say this in all of my videos, but it's true. And finally, on this shelf, I have this stunning edition. I don't know what it is about oldish books with just this simple cover. They remind me of an old library where you can find these little treasures, and to me that's so precious. Plus the smell of these books is it's the best. It smells like wood. If you know the smell, you know the smell. But that book is The Bell by Iris Murdoch. I have never read this book, but I really want to, of course. It's just stunning. Can I hold all of these? Let's see. Oh gosh. So these are the books on the next shelf. Starting with two Thomas Hardy's books. These are the old Oxford World's Classics collection. I have Far from the Madding Crowd, which is definitely on my, I would say it's the next one by him that I want to read, either this one or Jude the Obscure probably, still not sure, but again, just look at this design, it's so beautiful. And then I also have The Return of the Native, which again has a beautiful painting on the cover. These are absolutely some of my favorite editions. This small Penguin Classics as well. This one is part of the Penguin Modern Classics actually, and it is The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. I have heard so many mixed things about her books, but I'm very intrigued, of course. Let me know if you've ever read any of her work. And then we have a collection of plays by Ibsen, who's an author that intrigues me a lot. This copy is a little battered already. You can see the spine is a little broken, but I don't mind that at all. I actually find it very charming. There's something special about it. Plus, it still has the name of the previous owner. So thank you to Sarah Fitzpatrick for donating this book. And of course, some more Penguin classics. So let's quickly go through them. I have another Thomas Hardy, which is The Mayor of Casterbridge. I recently read this one actually. What Maisie Knew by Henry James. Villette by Charlotte Bronte, which if you have been following our Bronte Long currently, you know how I felt about this book. Then we have some Charles Dickens. We have The Old Curiosity Shop, another Thomas Hardy. This time we have The Trumpet Major, Adam Bede by George Eliot, and finally I have The Portrait of a Lady, again by Henry James. And finally, on my brown shelf, we have these ones, starting with Silas Marner by George Eliot. This is a Wordsworth Classics edition. The Virgin in the Garden by A.S. Byatt. I bought this one because recently we read Possession by the same author and I really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to reading more books by her. This is a King Penguin edition, which I don't think I had ever seen before until I found this book. Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. This is again a Wordsworth Classic edition. And so are all of these. These are all books by Anthony Trollope. And I have Barchester Towers, then The Warden, and finally Can You Forgive Her, a Palliser novel. I believe these are all books that are part of different series, or maybe these two are part of the same series and this is a different one. But anyway, very intrigued by these. Moving on to the shelf next to me, that's mainly where I keep my Black Spine Penguin Classics, but before that I also own this very cute set of Greek classics, which I actually bought when I went to Greece. So they really hold a special place in my heart, and I would love to go back eventually, probably when I learn a bit more about Greek mythology, which is something that I have been meaning to do for a long time. But anyway, there I found this Greek mythology collection. They are so precious. It has classics like the Odyssey, the Iliad, Gods of Olympus, Heracles. So it's a cute little collection. They look so amazing all together. I am missing a few as well, so I should probably see if they have them available online or something. And then of course we have the stars of the show. Hold on. I'm only holding maybe half of them, otherwise they will all fall on me. So we have The Divine Comedy by Dante, Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, which maybe you also know how I feel about this one. Romola by George Eliot. I recently got this one because we are reading it together very soon. The Fall of the House of Usher and Other Writings by Edgar Allan Poe. Another stunning edition of Waverley by Sir Walter Scott. And then The Importance of Being Earnest and Other Plays by Oscar Wilde. Moving to the other pile, we have Childhood, Boyhood, Youth by Leo Tolstoy, and then of course one of my all-time favorites, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, and Morris by E.M. Forster, The Oresteia, which I think is a collection of Greek plays, I still need to read this one, and Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Stories by Robert Louis Stevenson, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, a beautiful collection, and then finally The Portable Edgar Allan Poe, and it is edited by J. Gerald Kennedy. These are some of my favorite editions as well. I really don't like the fact that currently they have some new editions where these letters are now white. I much prefer these editions with kind of the orangey letters, but that's okay. I'm gonna keep trying and find these ones because to me they're much prettier. And I know it's such a smallish difference, but it really works. My next shelf is mainly dedicated to fantasy, but of course for that we need to mention The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien, because without it, fantasy wouldn't be the same. Of course it is a classic for all the right reasons. I adore it so much. It is now one of my favorite series, one of my favorite worlds, and I'm hoping to eventually read everything that J.R. Tolkien wrote or planned and was edited by other people, of course. And it's also a series that I'm hoping to collect some editions of because they're all so beautiful, and it's truly a world and these characters that, you know, feel like family to me now, so I just adore it with all my soul. When it comes to fantasy, I also own these two books. I have Guards by Terry Pratchett and also A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I would say these are both considered to be classics in fantasy. I still need to read both of them. I am very intrigued to see how I feel about them actually. As for the bookshelf right behind me, we will start from the bottom to the top because I need to show you some heavy books that stay right at the bottom of the bookshelves, and I think you can see why. But these are all classic Portuguese authors. I do own a few more books by each one of them, but again they might be at the top shelf. The first one, of course, I need to mention is one of my all-time favorites. Oh my gosh, they are falling. No. Okay. The first one is one of my favorites. Actually, I think all three of these could probably be considered favorites of mine. But anyway, of course the first one is Fernando Pessoa. This book is called The Book of Disquiet, or in Portuguese, Livro do Desassossego. I read this book in a time where I was figuring out a lot of things, and Fernando Pessoa's, especially his poetry, not so much this book, this one I read after that, but his poetry helped me a lot. He is someone who I still consider to this day to be a genius, and his work really helped me through difficult times. So of course I will always cherish it, and you can find a lot of English editions of this book, fortunately, so give it a try if you haven't already. Then I also have these two massive poetry collections by two different authors. The first one is Alexandre O'Neill and the other one is Sophia de Melbreiner Anderson. Her books are some of the first ones I have ever read, because she also writes a lot of children's literature as well as poetry, and they all speak to me on a deep level because she talks about nature in the most beautiful way, and how it moves her soul, especially the sea and the ocean, everything that has to do with that. It's just so magical. I adore her to pieces. When it comes to Portuguese authors, there are two other ones that I want to mention. The first one is probably the most controversial in our country, but that's okay. I personally love him, and that's José Saramago. I have these beautiful editions of his books. I am trying to slowly collect them. I don't know the titles in English, but in Portuguese we have Ensaio sobre a Cegueira. Actually, this one is called Blindness, I believe. O Evangelho segundo Jesus Cristo, and then finally Ensaio sobre a Lucidez. I will try and look up the English titles for you to see. I'm gonna try and put them in the description. But if you're looking to maybe try and read some Portuguese works, I'm not sure I would recommend Saramago as your first attempt. I mean, I love him, but he has a very particular writing style that not a lot of people get used to easily, but I just think the themes in his books are brilliant, so I always recommend him anyway. And another author that is also mandatory for us to read, and I'm glad it is because I loved everything I've read by him, is Essa de Queiroz. And once again, I don't know the title in English, but it is called O Crime do Padre Amaro. Currently, I think this is the only book that I own by him, and that is because during school I owned a lot of those really tiny copies of his books that were more like study guides, and I do want to get some beautiful editions like this one of his books. Moving up on the same shelf, I'm going to show you some of the stunning hardbacks that I own. The first one is this collection of Oscar Wilde's works. It does say the collected works of Oscar Wilde, so it includes Dorian Gray, as well as some poetry and plays, short stories. I was so excited when I got this one. It was a very kind gift from my cousins, and I may have started crying when they gifted me this. Oh, okay, I also have this stunning set of books. These are all part of the Seasons collection. So we have autumn, winter, spring, and summer. And they all have these very unique designs on the front. And then when you open them, it has these beautiful pages as well. And on the back, they always include a quote from each book. So this one is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I love all the details. See how the author's name is almost engraved on the cover? That's stunning. Persuasion by Jane Austen, Emma by Jane Austen as well, of course. And finally, we have Shakespeare in Autumn, the select plays and the complete sonnets. Look at that. It's so stunning. These are such unique editions. I love them so much. Some Penguin cloth-bound editions, of course. The first one is very appropriate for this season, and it is the Penguin Book of Christmas Stories. I started reading this one last year. I still have a bookmark here, so I might continue reading it a little bit during this festive season. Tales from 1001 Nights, Dante's Inferno. Then I also have The Pearl by John Steinbeck in this smaller edition. It's very cute. I love it. And then finally Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which I am currently reading and adoring with my entire soul. Then a few more modern classics. These are some of the red spines and also the white and grain-ish as well. Starting with these two, the first one I have is A Clockwork Orange, which I have been meaning to read for years now, mainly because of the movie. I was curious about the book after watching it, but right now I'm not sure. This is a story I would like to consume in a book form, so let me know what you think, if I should keep it or not. In case you've read it, tell me if you think it's worth it, because right now, I don't know, I feel like I'm losing a bit of interest. It might also be because I'm a little intimidated by it, but let me know what you think. The other one is a book that I really enjoy, and that is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Then there's Half a Lifelong Romance by Eileen Chang. And as for the red spines, I have A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway, then Beloved by Toni Morrison, and finally I Captured a Castle by Dodie Smith. Some more of these modern editions of classics that I own include To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, then The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and finally The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Also, these two tiny editions of these classics that I love so much. They look adorable together. I love them. These are the Essentials Penguin Classics. And I have A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I adore this cover so much. And then Eva Luna by Isabel Allende. And then, just in case there are some Portuguese people watching, I also wanted to show you these little treasures that I found at the Lisbon Book Fair. They're also stunning. I love these editions. So we have Jogo da Cabra Cega by José Régio, an amazing author as well. As Pupilas do Senhor Reitor by Julie Diniz. Love this edition. Again, there's something very special about these. We have A Severa by Júlio Dantas, and then also História do Fado, which I had never heard about, but I needed to grab it immediately. This apparently is a book about the history of this type of Portuguese music called fado, and it's beautiful. It usually has either a very happy tone or a very melancholic tone to it, and you can basically listen to it all the time if you ever come to Portugal. The next wonderful set of books that I want to show you is my vintage Russian classics. Oh no, okay, hold on. Starting, I think, from the shortest to the longest, I have The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, then Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak, Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman. Again, these designs, they look so good together. I love this set so much. Pride and Prejudice. No, that's not Pride and Prejudice. Crime and Punishment. Very similar, by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Anna Karenina, and of course, if I can hold it, War and Peace, oh god, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. A few books from the Alma Classics collection. I have Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, Jane Eyre, The Professor, and The Green Dwarf and Other Early Fiction by Charlotte Bronte, The Vindications by Mary Wollstonecraft, which is a book that I'm hoping to maybe read next year, and then finally Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I love not only the design but also the feeling of these editions. They're very soft. I love them very much. On that shelf, the last classics that I own are these beautiful vintage classics. Most of them are by Virginia Woolf. It's such a stunning collection. They look amazing together, and I have A Room of One's Own, To the Lighthouse, and The Waves. Just stunning. I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself, but these are all such gorgeous books. And the last one on this collection is Beloved by Toni Morrison. Again, a book that I'm hoping to read next year. Now, of course, a classics collection video would not be complete without the Penguin English Library Classics, which are some of my favorites. I feel like all of them are some of my favorites, but these ones are special to me because they are the first editions of classics that I started collecting, and they are the ones that made me realize just how much I love collecting classic literature. So there you go. The ones I own are A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, The Tenant of Waldfell Hall by Anne Bronte, Howard's End by E.M. Forster, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. They are all falling behind me. Oh no. The Murders in the Rue Morgue and Other Tales by Edgar Allan Poe, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, Emma by Jane Austen, Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. This one, just from the annotations, I know immediately what it is. Middlemarch by George Eliot, North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, and the final set is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. Next, I do also own these Barnes & Noble's classics. I have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. They both have these stunning sprayed edges with some of my favorite colors. I love green, and this beautiful design again. Look how pretty they look together. I love them. They also both have a quote of each book on the back of the book. These stunning vintage editions of Charles Dickens novels, which have been sold out recently, at least here in Portugal, which breaks my heart a little bit because they're beautiful. I have Hard Times and A Tale of Two Cities, and again, stunning sprayed edges. And again, a little quote on the back as well. I love when books do that for some reason. It feels special. Some other loose editions that I have. The first one is this one of Tales of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. This is the Faber Classics edition, which I feel like I don't usually love Faber Classics editions. I might be mistaking them for another one, but I think it's that. Anyway, I looked at this one. It was all alone at the bookstore and it looked perfect. It captured the feeling of the book so well, in my opinion, and I fell instantly in love, of course. And I also have these Bookishly editions. Bookishly is a company that makes book boxes, and a few of them are inspired by classic literature, so that's perfect. I do own Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare and also Les Mis again. This is volume 2 because I am currently reading volume 1. And finally, on that shelf, I have these Penguin Drop Caps editions of A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce and also Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. The shelf above that is one of my favorites because it has so many beautiful books together, starting with this stunning edition of Middlemarch by George Eliot. This was published when the book turned 150 years old, which is crazy to think about, but I love this novel so much. So this was a little treat for myself. I believe I got it when I went to, I can't remember if it was in Scotland or Ireland, but I just fell in love with it because it resembles an embroidery, so I loved it. I loved it to pieces. It has this stunning color inside, and it's a very special book. I wasn't expecting to love it so much, but there you go. It's so pretty. I see a lot of them falling already, but anyway, next I have, of course, this stunning Oxford Classics. Again, some of my favorite editions. They have a very simple look, and yet they're some of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The ones that I own are The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I need to read this book next year, as soon as possible. The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, the major works including poetry, prose and drama by Percy Shelley, The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe, The Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire, and this one also includes the French text, which I love, Anthony and Cleopatra by Charles Anthony and Cleopatra by Shakespeare, there you go. Selected poems, once again, by Rilke, and it also includes the German text, which I wish I could read maybe one day. The Monk by Matthew Lewis, Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, The Complete Short Stories by Oscar Wilde, Selected Tales by Edgar Allan Poe, another edition of Madame Bovary, then Zofloya or The Moor by Charlotte Ducker, yet another copy of Julius Caesar by Shakespeare, and then I have this one by Goethe, which is Faust, I believe. I've heard this is also a bit of an intimidating text, but I would love to read it soon, actually. And finally, on that bookshelf, actually, I have these ones, starting with the most perfect edition of Don Quixote I could find. This is, of course, by Miguel de Cervantes, and have you seen a floppier book ever in your life? It's perfect, if you ask me. I love it so much. It makes me want to read it even more, and I definitely need to do that soon. I have a couple of these beautiful Penguin Threads classics. They're just... I can't stop staring at them. They're so stunning. This is The Wizard of Oz and Other Wonderful Books of Oz, The Emerald City of Oz and Glinda of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Just look at that. Look at the detail of these covers. Then the other one I have is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. They're so beautiful. Look at the back as well. Wait, hold on. I mean, how can you not fall in love with these? And same goes for these ones as well. These are the Penguin Deluxe Classics. I have The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is the most beautiful, perfect cover for Wuthering Heights, if you ask me. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, Dracula by Bram Stoker, which again, I'm in love, seriously. And then The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I recently read and loved so much. We are now making our way towards the final two shelves, and right behind me you can see a little section that I created with some of my fairy tales books. Fairy tales are some of my favorites to read. I have a few by Hans Christian Andersen, a few others by the Grimm's brothers, and they always make me very happy despite how dark they can get. To brighten up the shelf a little bit, I also included some of my Disney Funko Pops. Because of how they are placed, I will not take them out right away from the bookshelves, but I might do that during my bookshelf tour in case you are curious, which hopefully will be coming very soon. But right above that shelf, we are moving to my Jane Austen section as well as other classics. Starting from left to right, I have this beautiful edition of the Little Women series. It actually includes all the books here. I never know the exact order, but we have Little Women, Good Wives, Little Men, and Jo's Boys. This is the Benediction Classic Edition, in case you are curious. They look so cute all together. Then, of course, my precious Puffin in Bloom collection. This, I think, were some of the first books that I bought when I started watching BookTube, which feels crazy to me because that was a long time ago. I didn't even dream of creating a channel. And look where we are now. That makes me feel very happy. But this collection has A Little Princess by Frances Hutchinson Burnett, also Heidi by Joanna Spyri, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, and finally, again, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. All of these also have a quote on the back with some stunning design. I love how they are all flowery, and it's as if each one of them is representing a different season. I just love them. Another edition of Heidi that I own is this one. This is one of my favorites. It is part of the Sisterhood collection, and I need all of them in my life. They all have a similar style to this one, where the protagonist has her hair up, and on the background it has some details about the story. Look at how she's holding the little goat. I can't. It's so precious. I love it so much. And on the back it says, I would a million times rather be with grandfather on the mountains than anywhere else in the world. I love Heidi. I love Heidi. They are so cute and have little illustrations as well. How precious. Then I also have this other Puffin Classics editions. So we have Tales of the Greek Heroes by Roger Lancelin Green, The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald, Hans Christian Andersen's Fairy Tales, again, because of course, and then A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I don't think words will ever be able to describe just how much in love I am with this edition of Pride and Prejudice. I mean, I literally don't have words to describe it. It is a beautiful illustrated edition, and anytime I stare at it, I could stay here for hours just looking at it because it's so pretty. Look at that. Oh my gosh. I mean, you have so many examples. I don't like to spoil everything just in case you don't own the book and want to be surprised, but I mean, just look at that. It's illustrated all throughout, and the cover itself and the back as well. I mean, this deserves its own spotlight. If I could, I would give a special place for each book on each bookshelf because they're all stunning, but this one definitely deserves its spot. It's illustrated by Alice Patullo, I think. I mean, she did such an incredible job. I just adore it so much. I mean, if you own it, you know how stunning it is. I will not spoil anything else, but just so you know, if you love the book, I highly recommend it to get this edition for sure. And yet another stunning edition of Pride and Prejudice is this one. This is the classic novel with recipes for modern tea time treats by Martha Stewart. And I mean, if you can combine Pride and Prejudice with delicious treats, what else do you need? Even the chapter pages are kind of shaped like treats. Can you see that? It's such a stunning edition. Oh my gosh. Look at that. This is Rosemary Pound Cakes. I am kind of hungry right now, for sure. Let's see another one. Cream Scones. Ooh. And of course, speaking of Jane Austen, I also need to show you my complete set of her novels. These are the vintage Jane Austen classics, and we have Emma, Mansfield Park, Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion, and finally Northanger Abbey. These complement each other so much. I think it was also one of the first sets that I bought when I first started watching booktube, so that's very special. It brings a lot of memories, and again with the post on the back, it's just a detail that I love so much. I know it's fairly common, but whenever books do that, I immediately get so happy. The last books I think that are left for me to show you are some of my children's classics, but first I also have these two other books. The first one is Things Fall Apart, which is a Penguin classic, and then I also have The Handmaid's Tale, which this is a collection of only dystopian novels, I believe. It says Vintage Books London, and yes, I think they also have one for 1984 and Brave New World, so books like those, I think they're very effective. I would say they look kind of scary, but I love them for it. I think they fit the tone of the stories very well, and this one I'm quite intrigued by it, even though I'm pretty sure it's a heartbreaking story. I think it is an autobiography, or at least a fiction inspired by a real story. But yes, I have these two, and now let's move on to the last little section of this collection. I thought we might as well change the scenery a little bit since they are right up there. These two I got very recently during a trip where I went to visit my family, and I have Anne of Green Gables again, and also Heidi. They have these golden sprayed edges. I love the flowers as well around the book. On the inside pages as well, look at that. This one is for Heidi and this one for Anne of Green Gables. They are illustrated editions as well. I'm gonna try and not spoil too much, but here's one of them for Heidi and then one for Anne. Absolutely precious. I love them so much. I was so happy when I found these. I have yet another edition of Little Women. This is actually the one inspired by the most recent movie adaptation. This is a very similar copy to the one we get to see there, and it also has some pictures of the movie itself. Let me try and look for one. Okay, here's one. Hold on. Oh, not this one, because that's kind of spoilery. Okay, maybe this one. Sure, why not? It's not spoilery. It doesn't show you anything. But yes, if you love the book and if you love the movie as well, this is such a perfect edition for you to have. I do own multiple editions of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This is the first one with the tree and the red hearts as well, with her looking at Cheshire Cat. I love that detail. And then I have this very creepy one, which is also a Penguin Deluxe edition, so I might move it to the other shelf, but either way, it's a very creepy looking cover. It's very unique, I would say, even the back as well. If you look at the rabbit, it has 3 eyes. Yet another edition of The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, and on the same edition I also have The Call of the Wild by Jack London. I tried reading this book, I couldn't really get into it, but I might give it another chance eventually. These are also Puffin Classics editions, in case you're curious. Then this little collection of a few more books. We have The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, yet another copy of Alice in Wonderland. This one is much more adorable. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, The Railway Children by E. Nesbit. I think this is the only one out of all of these that I haven't read, because again, we have another one of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I love this edition because it has details about each one of the sisters. That's a very nice touch. And then finally, I have a few similar editions, I would say, which are these ones. Again, Alice in Wonderland, and this is not my final copy of it either. Then The Wind in the Willows once again, and The Secret Garden once again. I love children's classics. In case you haven't noticed, I'm always happy to read them. And the final book is this beautiful edition of The Little Prince with all the stars and golden sprayed edges as well. So pretty. I will also share a few clips of some other books that I own but are not exactly placed on the bookshelves. They are either at the top of the shelf or just at some other different places as well. But with all that said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's most likely a very long one, but I love sharing my collection with you all. And once again, I would love to hear your thoughts about classics, if you read them, if you have any favorite books, favorite editions, recommendations. Let me know all of that. I hope you're having the most wonderful day and doing very well. And as always, I am sending you all the love, all the hugs, and I will see you again very soon on my next video. Bye!